Hello, and welcome back to yet again, once another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevent, and once again, I'm lucky to be joined by Noelle Dombrowski. Noelle, how you doing there?
Doing pretty good today. Feeling like I'm traveling for the first time in a long
Right.
time.
I was thinking that. For those of you that don't know this, I usually do these podcasts on an Android device, and only recently did Android make it so that you can have backgrounds. And apparently, I was so excited, I'm going to dress like my background. We're going to fit into this together, but it is exciting. I mean, but I think that's it's interesting. That shows yet again that nothing is ever stagnant. If you want to be able to improve things and keep things going, you need to change them. I'm frankly, I'm surprised it took Zoom this long to make it possible for Android devices to have backgrounds. I mean, you think there's no Zoom competition, but I've just been on multiple meetings this week on something called Blue Jeans, which is a
Ooh,
very similar Zoom. It's not quite as good as Zoom, but I could certainly see the appeal. But I think if like everything else, the moral is there's always some new technology you have to learn and you have to become competent with, and that of course leads us into today's topic, where Noel, I believe you're going to tell us how to better use a technology that's been around for a while, but there's always more you can get out of
absolutely. Oh, always. That's YouTube. I love YouTube. It's great. I think there are people who do it really well in terms of self-marketing, like YouTubers. It's not so much what we're talking about. I think today is more on terms of, establishing, a presence as a business, or, if you're as an entrepreneur, working for yourself as opposed to like personality uh, kind of thing. But I think there's a lot to consider, if you're looking at making your first YouTube channel, or if you're looking at your channel that you haven't touched in a while, and you're like, how can I strengthen this? And I think there's a lot of things too, little easy mistakes that kind of bite you in the butt too. If you're uploading, certain settings can kind of trip you up in ways that aren't necessarily right up front, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah. It was especially just because somebody that messes very little with their own personal YouTube channel, and should do more with it. But the idea that it's even for someone in a business capacity, it can be very difficult. Speaking personally here, to go from that mindset of person watching something on YouTube that's using it as a consumer versus someone who's using it as a professional. And I think I know that's a very difficult mindset to jump make that leap, and it sounds like that's a bit of what you're going to touch on today, which I'm very eager to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's see. Good place to start, I think, is just kind of looking at the content of your channel. Just because you don't have a lot of content doesn't mean your channel has to be bare. I think there's a
Mm.
lot of ways that you can kind of take things and recycle them and put them in different places. But I think something that it's almost kind of like showing up to an Instagram page and you have 3 photos. If all you have on your YouTube is 3 pictures or 3 videos, and you show up and that's all you see on the page, that's not, it's not going to do anybody any favors. They're immediately going to feel like this is incomplete. So I think in setting up a YouTube, it's important to, just kind of have a checklist of all the different things that you need to just fill in bare minimum, like social media links, or like having a banner, like having a good banner, having a profile image that is relevant. But once you start uploading, it's more than just the video content that you're putting out there. With every upload, you're kind of investing in your own digital presence,
Mm.
because there's a lot of things to digest there. So a lot of people think, okay, I make a video, I put it up, either people like it or they don't, and then I'll just keep either doing the same thing or changing, like and
This all sounds very familiar, Noel. Yes,
just. And on a very surface level, that can be it. And a lot of the times you can feel like, oh gosh, I just can't figure out why I'm not getting this traction. That's absolutely not true. So things like too, so building out descriptions and building out your YouTube channel, what that also does for you, not just on a level of someone coming and visiting your page, as a customer, a consumer, a potential client, and they're believing in your authority, but the internet that is digesting this information also has to understand. You kind of have to tell, things like YouTube, who you are and what you want to do. For example, if you're not adding keywords to your channel, you're doing yourself a disservice. So when you go into channel settings, you go through the settings, and I think that's something everybody should just kind of go through. A lot of people, you just kind of throw up some pictures. All right, I'm just going to start uploading videos. But the more you can kind of build out your channel, the more search engines can look at what you're giving, and they'll prioritize you because they're seeing that you're offering information. Because if you have nothing there, there's nothing for it to digest. There's nothing for it to really analyze and say, what kind of person should I be showing these videos to? If you give them nothing, you're going to get nothing back.
Right.
So I feel like, keywords, this is where keywords come into play big time. Put them in your titles, put them in your comments, put them in your tags. Use keywords to link back to your site. I can't tell you how many times I've seen videos where it's like a 2-line description and not a single link. I think that you're immediately, with every upload, it's an investment. You should never just kind of toss something up. Everything should be a step toward strengthening, if not just your brand, your understanding of how you're being discovered and how these things kind of play together, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And a question I'd like to ask from, and I don't know how many other small business owners feel the same way. Maybe I'm just asking this on behalf of myself, but I don't think I am. For some people, maybe it's people a little older, there's a natural reticence about putting in keywords, just as if it feels, I don't want to say, maybe I do want to say spammy, scammy, something inauthentic, and maybe wrong about it, as if it's something that could turn people off. Yet what you're saying, that's just something to get over. Just do it. It's the kind of thing that from what you're saying, it's not a like to, or it's a have to. It's a necessity. Okay.
Absolutely. And the way you do it is very important, because I think, we're at a point where the way that data is being analyzed is they can tell when you're just throwing shit in there, shit in there, and so it's not just, if you have tags, adding your keywords there. An example is I was building out YouTubes for some of our attorney clients this past week, and while it could be tempting to just be like, just listing the services and just being like keyword link, think like a human, because you're going to give you're going to give more to analyze. You're going to give more. It's going to look more like information that is valuable to somebody, as opposed to a frantic attempt to just kind of, increase your bid. So for example, one is, injury lawyer services. This is the link. No. No. Like, that's nice. Like, if you're like, but we're not the yellow pages. This is YouTube, and so if you want to have that authority, it's, and two, if you put it with relevant videos, if you have and I think, this particular account I was working on was very good about this. But I think in terms of maybe other channels, if you have multiple services, if you're going to plug those with those keywords, you have to make it fluid. So for example, if you've been hurt, or you think that, you need our assistance, we fight hard for everybody, learn more at this link. And, make sure you get your phone number in there, and your website, your link to your website should always be the first line in your YouTube description, because that's the most important place. It's the first thing that that YouTube reads. And also it adds some more authority to your upload. But yeah, and then finding those keywords, putting them in the title is very important. Putting them in the file name. Never name your file name like ABC123, because it's just, all that data is being analyzed. So if you put keywords in the title, if you're doing a Q&A about, workers' comp injuries, it's workers' comp questions, look at the keywords that you are trying to, that you're trying to strengthen, and put that in the file name, because once again, that's something that YouTube looks at, because when they get a search, they're like, I need to in order to do my job, I have to find the most relevant information. The more you keep putting those keywords in, it's not just about ranking, but it's also how you are being judged in terms of how useful you are to other consumers.
I see. Okay, so there's what I take from that is that every step of the process is conscious. There's nothing that's simply done for the sake of getting it done. Everything is done with thought behind it, and that thought is like almost as if someone just starting from absolute scratch, but keep the keywords in mind. Like if you're
Yeah,
like, I have no idea what to do, I'm not gonna just put the keywords in, whether it's
yeah,
in the description and the title, to all of that. That okay, that sounds like a great foundational idea.
absolutely. Yeah, what I do for every one of our accounts, and this is very helpful. There's so much to what you just said. Uh, every little thing when you're uploading a YouTube video is very deliberate. It should be very deliberate, because you're essentially it's submitting an application in a way almost. You have to kind of, it's all building toward your authority, and you want to get all the juice out of it that you can. So there are a lot of resources, and I'll probably link them in the description of this as well, in terms of checklists for optimization, for making sure that you're using all these resources. And when I first started doing YouTube, I used a lot of those, and a lot of them are on Pinterest. My favorite ones are on Pinterest. At least you
We
pay me with
almost
how much
made
I
it
talk
without a
about them.
Pinterest reference. It took like 10 minutes. You got one in.
You got a Gen Z woman on the podcast. I'm not going to stop. But no, but that's like, and that's what, I think it's so, you look at the upload page, and, it's gotten to a point too. YouTube is a career for people. There is so much in terms of, you can
100%.
look at analytics, you can look at how are people digesting it? You can look at all these different things. You have tags, you have end cards that you can add to the ends of things. You can add links in the video. It's a lot. So if you're just starting to do this, and, especially if you're hearing what we're saying now, this rhetoric of, can't just toss it up there, you really need to use, everything you've got, it could be intimidating. But a lot of these, it's checklists like just what we're talking about. Do you have a keyword in the title? Did you remember to do your tags? Is your file name, does that include a keyword, or is that relevant to the subject you're trying to build authority on? And that is all, it all adds up. And I think looking into those other things like, an end card is, if you don't know what it is, it seems kind of like, I don't even know what that is. Why bother? But that's when you can add things to the end of the video, so that for people who, have engaged all the way through, you can suggest, oh, you like this. So for example, our podcasts, at the end of one, it would be, let's say it's a social media podcast from Kat you really like. So you get to the end, there's subscribe for Website Depot, and then it suggests the daily digital playlist. So you can say, oh my gosh, I want to hear more of this. And then the most relevant video, but YouTube will try to suggest it, but go and pick your own, because you want to kind of drive your own traffic where you want it to go.
Right.
But yeah, another thing that's, oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that's for, maybe a business owner that's still a little newer to this, that's literally synonymous with the call to action. It's the exact same thing that you would have at the end of any blog, any post, anything, any ad. It's the exact same thing, just in a new medium.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about just stuffing that extra information in there. And linking to other videos and linking to other playlists is really important. So not just in the end cards, but in the descriptions, because what that is, again, is YouTube is analyzing that as a reference. When you quote those links, it's seeing like you're giving your references, not only that, but it's adding authority to those links, because they are serving as a reference for the video, if that makes sense. So
yes, absolutely.
all your so they're saying, oh, okay, this page value is being cited here, that's going to add points. It's all just points, that really kind of strengthen all of that. But that's not the only way to get views. In fact, it's we could talk about the organic kind of discovering on YouTube, and that's what a lot of this stuff plays into. But a lot of it too is a matter of like that linking a playlist in the about, or distributing to things like Facebook and Twitter. And if you like this, then you would like this video, getting that stuff out there. because the more you can draw in those outside, that external traffic, that also builds your authority on YouTube. And you're going to say, oh, people are coming here just for that. We're going to bump it up.
Right. I was just, I was just struck by in that last part where you talked about, the organic of things, people finding things. This is how they find things. This is how somebody, you think like, oh, I just stumbled across this. No, you didn't. Not accidentally. This is what made that, you were walking on a path. This is what paved the path. It's maybe you didn't see it, maybe you weren't aware of it, maybe, think of it like the construction crew, the dudes pouring the concrete in and the whatnot. This is how that happens. This is, as you mentioned, everything you do as a business owner in your YouTube page has to be deliberate. One of the major driving reasons for that is that everything YouTube does is deliberate, even the things that seem like they are not.
I'm going to pull on the cat love gospel of putting yourself out there as well.
Okay.
Yes. That is indispensable. It's just as important as, because it's like, as she said in a million different ways, if you're sitting there on your own island, you're not engaging with anything else, you're not going to draw people, new people to your channel. You're not going to draw new people to your videos. So, whatever your industry is, kind of find those auxiliary kind of channels to look at, to subscribe to, and to comment and engage with, because even if they don't necessarily subscribe, they are coming and they're engaging with your videos because you've gotten their attention. And that's just as important. I think a lot of the times too, it's important to get subscribers. It's even more important to, retain subscribers and channel watch time. But if you can just get that click over, that every click counts. So even if you're just thumbs upping on a video and saying, this was great, thank you for sharing, for example, and I was working on this week, so their vessel registration, there's a lot of boat and vessel blogs that talk about the stuff that they do that aren't necessarily competitors. There's a lot of vessel enthusiasts who, and you can go to, and if you have these auxiliary channels like Twitter, like Instagram, look at who you're following there, and do they have a channel, on YouTube? Because that's another great way to, to get those subscribers and back that up, because it's really not, I think some people think that if you subscribe as a channel to a bunch of people, I think people think too with like Instagram, it's almost like, oh, if I'm following a bunch of people and then a bunch of people are following me and the ratio is not great, I'm not going to look good. If that makes sense. Like you always want to be following like 5 people and have 10,000 following you, but you're not penalized for that on YouTube in any way, because they're seeing it as engagement, they're seeing it as value, especially if what you're doing is you're interacting with relevant channels that might even, cross over into your keywords. But, it's important to kind of, because then they can assess your audience even better.
That's a wonderful, and that was something I had no idea of, because I mean that edict is so strict on every social media platform of, not following more people than follow you, or at least keeping that number somewhat close. Whereas with YouTube, you're saying it's a literal benefit. I mean, it shows it. In fact, it's, if anything, it's the exact opposite of how it's seen on the other platforms, where by following these people, by subscribing to them, you are providing a value.
Absolutely.
You are more valuable ultimately. Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And the more you engage, the more you do these things, the more YouTube is going to say, YouTube, unlike, I think, especially these days, like Instagram and Facebook, these platforms where you can shop directly from there, things are a little more competitive, they're a little more sharky. But YouTube for some time has always tried to foster like a creative community, or a creator community.
Right.
And they want people to partner. They want people to, because what it does is it just draws more people to their platform.
Certainly.
Because the other thing about YouTube, it's, it's not so much competing as a social media service as it is, it's selling that content. It's providing that content. And it's also not like there's some other YouTube competitor you're going to go click over to.
Right.
It's always been YouTube. So, they reward you for that. They see you as a valuable member of their creating community. So.
Gotcha. No, that's such great advice. I mean, it's interesting how, I'm just struck by the things you discussed here today. Each of them, I'm so glad you said Kat's mantra about, just put yourself out there, is that so much of what you've talked about is sort of like valid ways to do that, that aren't just saying like, hey, we sell the best lawn tools. Like it's these are ways of putting yourself out there that are in no way salesy. They are in no way the hard sell. They're not, buy this today, now, deal expires at 6. It's none of that. It's a way of putting yourself out there in a way that doesn't really expose you, yet still expose you in like a bad sense of making you vulnerable or weak, but rather strengthens you almost immediately from what you're saying, like
Absolutely.
as well as in the long run. Yeah.
Because there are things you can do too, even if you don't have a lot of videos. So some other things I did this past week was building out YouTube channels that only had one video. And how do you do that? How do you build it out? Create playlists. And I think people, they underuse playlists. Playlists are fantastic. They build so much authority for your channel, because that is a great way for you to, you can kind of have all your things in one place. You can categorize things, and then YouTube can digest that in one way. If you have Q&As, or you have, this is all about, one thing or another thing, but it's a great way to also build out the face of your channel if you don't have a lot of videos, because you can pull from other creators. And so for example, for this particular channel, it was about building out a playlist with videos from the artists of this label or who had collaborated with this label, and performances that were live, and they're from other channels.
Okay.
So we might not necessarily have, and in a way, that's almost better than like ripping it and putting it on your channel, because what this other upload has already done is they've built that authority, and they've been around. And that's the other thing is if you hate a video, like try not to delete it, just like put it on private. But the longer a video is up, especially if, let's say you're a lesser established brand, if this playlist features an artist from your label, and the person who the record, whoever posted it, who does the performances, they have a certain amount of followers. This video has been up for 6 months. It has a certain amount of comments. They have links in there, etc. If you rip it and you just kind of do your own thing, you're essentially starting from zero, when it's far more effective to take that and associate it with your content, because it's adding more authority. You're kind of, I don't want to say you're like copying off the test, but you're pulling some of that in to prove, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like, I don't know if the proper, no, that all makes so much sense when you put it that way. I don't know if the analogy is necessarily, copying off the test so much as would be like, hey, you saw us at other establishments. Like you saw us, as you saw our products in Target, you saw our performances on this TV show, you saw, it's this other place that you've seen us. It's the opposite of copying. It's look at this other place where we were doing what we do.
Yeah. And it's more proof for the algorithm and for the consumer that, I've been everywhere, man. There are other people that have invested their time in this and said this was so valuable that I wanted to put up a video of your performance, And the other thing, actually, kind of to that point, is featuring channels. You can feature channels on your channel page. And first of all, it's a great way to build out the page, because it fills up space. And while, I'm not an advocate for just putting shit in to put shit in, if you have a valuable section to share, it's a nice way to just kind of aesthetically, like, really build out that page in a way that's not just like video, etc. It gives people a little more variety and more of a sense of what you do. But it's also a great way to, once again, just add that juice to your channel and kind of prove your worth. So a great example is, it's not that you have to, for us, it's easy because Website Depot has Silverlandia, SEO Academy, and all that. Things. So that's an example of, if you're an umbrella company like that, yes, you can do that. But if you're somebody like, like a smaller business and you sell things, it's kind of like, who would I feature? A great example is, if there are if you do skincare and there are hotels that have your skincare products there, like Marriott or whatever, you can follow Marriott, you can highlight them on your channel. If you've gotten a feature in a publication, like the label got a feature in Rolling Stone Japan, they're part of Universal Music Group. We might not own those channels, but we could feature them
and
on
we
the
definitely
front
will,
of the
because
channel.
those are big names. Yes.
Exactly. And so that's also how you build that authority, because then, and as long as you're putting things in there that people can understand, like for example, with the label, if you just look for a little bit, if you read about them, you can see that they're not just posting these people. You can see, here's the article from Rolling Stone Japan. Here's the banner that says they're under Universal Music Group. Like, you have to tie all these things kind of together. But it's worth it. Wherever your products are sold, if there's like a chain of stores that sells them, feature that channel. If you have a sister company, that one, or if you're whoever owns the company, if they have their own business channel or kind of vlog, you could feature that as well.
That's tremendous. I mean, that is just, wow, that's such a great foundation for getting started. And really, it's interesting. I think you started this by saying like, hey, here's things that you can do at the beginning, but those are also, and that's certainly true, but these are also things you can do for like the rest of your business. Like, it's not like these are things you will just do for a limited period of time and then your business hits a certain growth point and then you stop. Everything you said is something that you're going to want to do throughout the duration of your business for continued growth, from the dude blogging in his garage to Walmart are going to want to do all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can feel intimidating at first, but it's almost like when you start a new sport, I mean, any platform I feel like is like this, but because there are so many components to YouTube, and like I said, I'll link checklists. I think that is like incredibly helpful. But once you gotta kind of look at all these things, like you're treating the whole body and you're figuring out your whole workout, you have to know what you are worrying about and looking at, so you know what you need to strengthen.
Right.
And the more you do it, the more, and I think you got to work the whole body. You can't just be like, all right, here, I'm going to upload this video, and this time I'm going to focus on tags, and the next time I'm going to do tags, and then this. Have one good video. And the more you get into that routine, the more you can shortcut these things in a way that, you cut down the workload. So if you have a recurring podcast, I have a folder full of captions and stuff where, it's like, all right, so I'll change the podcast description week to week, but I know that I'm always going to, post these links, that link to listen to it on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. And I know I will have this keyword with this link, and it gets to a point where you can change some stuff. Or you can even do things like set your upload settings so that every time you upload, it automatically adds, you can add, like, these are our social links and this is that, and you don't have to add it every time. And things like the keywords, you set those up and you can set them to recur with every video, the tags, and so a lot of this stuff, you can set it and forget it to a point where then you can really focus on a lot of the nitty gritty, stuffing those links in, engaging and doing all that stuff that takes a little more time.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's so great. It's like, no, from what you said there, I got the idea that like, okay, you're going to start these things and you're going to do them and it's going to take you a minute, but as with anything else, it will get better and simpler with experience. I mean, it is, as you grow, you will find ways of, expediting the process and fitting it into your day to day, which is of course true of anything in business or life or anything else.
Absolutely.
Well, that was great. That was super fun. I mean, I always say like, oh, I learned a lot, but like, no, seriously, I learned a lot.
Oh, awesome.
Is there anything else you want to add? I mean, that's all tremendous. That was great. That was like 4 different podcasts worth of information in there, which is fine.
I would love to, not now, but in the future, get into analytics, because you can learn so much about, getting and keeping people. But the biggest thing is to just make sure that you're I keep using analogies, but like using every part of the animal, like really like look at all the little different things. You can never do too much. I think the other important thing too is to not be afraid of looking at competitors' stuff and kind of seeing what they've done and their layouts and stuff, and trying to work off of that, even if it makes things easier for you. I think it's always important to know too what the other people are doing. Um, but yeah, just slow and steady with that stuff. One good upload, one good page is better than just rapid fire uploading what you have. And adding thumbnails. That's one last thing I'll just throw in there.
Please, of course.
It's super easy. There are, there's a lot of free resources. Like I think PicMonkey is one. We use Canva. I use Photoshop. Adding thumbnails to your videos not only adds that authority and shows that you are a channel that's you're a creator, you take this seriously, but it's aesthetically pleasing. And if you look at our podcast, anyone will notice that all the podcasts kind of have a similar aesthetic. It kind of it'd be a great way to really kind of coordinate your brand's image, because when you go to that page, once you finally have a bunch of videos, you can click over and it's all kind of a similar theme, not boring like repetitive, but cohesive.
Right. Yes.
People will take you more seriously, and your channel will be a lot prettier, which means people will want to look at it longer. So
no, that makes perfect sense. That was all great. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on as ever, Noelle. That was great.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Greg.
Always, always. Well, on behalf of Website Depot, my name's Greg Benevent. Take it easy. Have a good night.